Hello, hello, and welcome back. I'm so glad you're here. This Mind, Body, Soul Mastery podcast is a place where we explore what really means to live with intention, to lead from the heart, and to walk through life with a deeper connection to mind, body, and soul. Whether I'm sitting down with a guest or just sharing what I'm learning in real time, my hope is that you'll hear something that invites you back to yourself. So take a deep breath and let's drop in to today's conversation. This is a solo episode in my grief and growth series. This has come up because in the last number of months, I've had a handful of friends experiencing grief at the same time with just what they're going through. And if you listen to me, you know that I lost my son Ian in the fall of 2022, and grief is a program that just runs in the back of my mind all the time. So we're going to first acknowledge today that grief doesn't always look like death. Grief isn't just for people who have lost their person or lost someone. Grief comes in many ways. For me, I acknowledged that I had been grieving my whole life when I was actively mourning and grieving my son's death because the feeling was familiar. Like I have felt this my whole life. And what I learned through that was that grief can be through change, through divorce, career loss, losing property. Grief can be in the uncertainty of things. Grief's in endings. It's also in unmet expectations. For me, that was my biggest realization. Oh, this familiar feeling that I have grieving my son's death, it is very much tied to and related to so many unmet expectations that I didn't handle well. I didn't process well. I stuffed and suppressed. So my intention in this grief and growth series is to just talk about grief, make the conversation more normal, allow us to expand our awareness on grief so that when it happens to us, we recognize it, but also for you to recognize in someone else who may be grieving what's happening and being able to maybe even start a conversation, because that's where we really need to go as a society. That's where we really need to go as humans, loving humans, is to be able to talk about the rough spots, to be able to talk about the hard things, to honestly share how I'm feeling and be safe and held in that space. So the intention for this series is to create space for reflection, for truth to come through, and also for growth, for our own growth, for ourselves and its soul evolution, but also growth as a collective. You know, life and death are the two facts about being human. And we do a fabulous job of celebrating life between births and birthdays and achievements and new jobs and graduations and all those things. We do a great job at celebrating life. But we're not as practiced and we're not as good at honoring what we lose. Letting ourselves grieve, letting ourselves feel that loss. Nor are we good at holding space for what no longer is. See, I believe we need to normalize grief and not hide from it any longer. Like those days, that paradigm is gone, it's done. We need to let grief be a part of how we live. And we need to be okay with that. Because friends, grief isn't just something we survive. And grief isn't about fixing or rushing. Grief is about honoring what's real and allowing the feelings to be felt and move through. So if you've been listening for a while, you may have heard my story about Ian, but Ian was the catalyst for my healing journey. He's the one that put me on this path 6 years ago simply because of our relationship. He was what started my spiritual journey, what started my awakening, what started my soul evolution. And through his death 2 years ago, it deepened all of that. It deepened my spiritual journey. It deepened my awareness. It deepened my consciousness. It deepened all of that. And the shift has really been incredible. And when I talk about this, it's very common for me to say, I have a very unique perspective of grief because of my spiritual journey, because of what I've learned about myself and different things. And Ian's death was a great period of growth for me, but also expanded my awareness, and it expanded my consciousness and unraveled some beliefs I had. But I really want to emphasize that this journey that we're on really is about learning to carry our grief and to move with it. We're not here to get over it. And if that's something that you may have said to someone, please never say it to anyone else again. Compassion and grace for those who grieve and who are carrying loss that may be so present, so visible. So I'm going to go back to, in the last few months, the 4 or 5 women that are close to me in my life that are going through grief, all different things. I have a friend who had to become the caregiver for her father as he was nearing the end of her death. Caregiver, as well as taking care of mom and dad. So it was this anticipatory grief. You knew it was coming, you just didn't know when. I have another friend who's navigating her 3rd cancer diagnosis. I have another friend whose mother had a stroke and had to support her mom through all that process and recovery. I have another good friend who's facing job loss and burnout. Her identity is unraveling. All of these women, in ways, are experiencing grief because invisible grief is real too. It's extremely real. And I'm fine is something we say when the truth feels like too much. And sometimes what's underneath isn't just sadness. It's grief we haven't named, grief we haven't really looked at, grief we want to just kind of hide. We don't want to. And it could be like grief for the version of life we thought we had, grief for the slow loss of our identity, of our certainty, or maybe the loss of our connection with someone or something. Invisible grief doesn't always come with tears or rituals or ceremonies or those lines that we wait to give condolences. Invisible grief often hides behind strength, responsibility, or silence. So, friend, if you've been whispering, "I'm fine," while carrying something heavy, this space is for you. I see you. And I'm going to just say, I call bullshit on the "I'm fine." I've learned to just say that to my family. One of my children in particular, sometimes it's just a matter of, well, I say bullshit, but I'll allow you to have it for the moment. And then I always come back and revisit. Sometimes our grief is about what was or wasn't. And again, it's these unmet expectations for that version of life that didn't happen. I know for me, divorce was a huge loss. Divorce was a huge period of working through the grief of that, not necessarily so much for my ex-husband. For me, it was much more around the dream that I had of a partner and married for life. It was the loss of the illusion for me. It was I'm not married for life. I didn't get that dream. That was a dream I have held my whole entire life. Is I still would love that, married for years and decades. There's time. But when we have this grief around unmet expectations or around what was or wasn't, I know someone who dreamed in high school of playing college ball, and an injury in high school, shattering his knee, completely quashed that dream. And for him, 6, 7, 8 years later out of high school, he still carries that grief of what he wanted and what he thought his life was going to be and what he wanted to do and what he was going to do. He still carries that. And so when we carry grief, it's really important to name the feelings, the regret, the self-blame, the disappointment, whatever the feeling is. Name it, acknowledge it. And I do want you to know that grief for what could have been is valid. It's valid. And one of the other things I've learned through this grief and growth process is I've learned to live in the duality. And here's my example for this is that I can have tears running down my face. I can be sad and missing Ian as I'm watching my other adult children barbecue, laugh and joke, have conversation, muck around. I can be sad that he's not here because he would have been right in there with them. At the same time that I'm looking at my adult children and so very grateful for their relationship, so very grateful that they get along, so very grateful that they choose to spend time with each other. That's the duality of being able to grieve and be grateful at the same time. Friend, you can miss what was and still move toward what's next. That's the duality. That's kind of living in the present and not putting anything aside and not shoving anything away. That's truly embracing the present. And I'm going to share this story right now because I have a friend who's actually living it in real time, who's moving across the country, moving from the West Coast more towards the East Coast. And as she's traveling, she's grieving the friends that she made and that she's leaving behind and the life and the experiences that she had from her town. At the same time, she's excited about the new beginnings, this new adventure, this new chapter in her life that's unfolding. That's the duality, right? That's the duality. And she's not running from it. She's allowing whatever to come. She's allowing the tears. She's allowing the memories. She's allowing the feelings to move through. Grief and growth are not opposites. They're companions. They're companions. And again, this is the duality of being a human. This is our ability, the depth of us to be able to be both at the same time. And my growth through Ian's death, like I was in a plateau before he died, just kind of in an integration period in a plateau. And then all of a sudden I got the call and he was dead. And it was an immediate catapult into unexpected growth. And well, obviously growth in a way I didn't want, right? Like whoever wants to get that phone call? I don't ever want to get a phone call like that again. But some of the ways that I had to grow, right? Like, well, I had to work through and go through, what are we doing? Thankfully, his dad and stepmom took care of the remains and the coroner and all of that. Like I didn't have to experience any of that. And for that, I am grateful. But I did have to call my family, call my friends, tell my peoples, tell my children. And what are we going to do, right? So all these new things, these things I never had to experience before, I had to walk through. And that is growth. When we have to learn to do new things and do new things, that's growth. And that growth didn't erase my pain, yet it did help me shape who I'm becoming. It did teach me things along the way. It did reveal things to me along the way. For example, I didn't know that the feeling of grief was a familiar feeling. I didn't know that I had been holding grief and all these unmet expectations for decades. So I was able to accept the mystery of it, but also lean into the meaning and lean into the things that I was learning, the awareness that was coming, the threads that were being shown to me. My growth through Ian's death also changed my perspective about heaven and hell and life and death. I now believe that hell is what we're living here on earth, the experiences that we're having, this hell on earth, and that our eternal soul returns home. And I don't believe we come here to live one life and die, and that's it. I believe we return home, our souls return home. And many times the soul comes back to choose to do it again and to learn something new and to evolve in a different way. So my perspective about this life we're living and its purpose, again, completely changed because I believe our souls are here to evolve. And this human experience is like no other. And there is no other being in this universe that experiences the feelings and has the experiences that humans do. And that's why we as souls chose this. And now I no longer see life as something we just try to get through. I now see it more clearly as it's part of something bigger. And it's this journey of growth, this soul evolution. So maybe you find yourself there too, asking questions about what matters, what's true, and who you're becoming through all of this. Those are great questions. Such great contemplation. Keep asking. Your mind, body, soul, specifically your body and soul, will answer. So if there's one thing that if you find yourself sitting there, I would just want to remind you, you're not alone. There are many people who are right in it with you. You may not know them, or maybe you do. You just don't know. Remember, grief can look different for everyone. Let "I'm fine" be one of the cues for you to go, there's probably something more there. And if I could offer one thing, one little nugget of hope is that what you feel right now isn't the end of your story. It isn't the end of your story. So, friend, if this conversation stirred something within you, I invite you to take a moment to pause, reflect, and ask, what in this was for me? What was for me? And then go journal about it or share that awareness with a trusted friend. You'll find all the links to connect with me in the show notes. And I'll be linking the conversation that I had as a guest on the Elise Morgan show, where I talked more about Ian's death, my grief, and how I moved through it. So my friend, until next time, be kind to your heart. You don't have to walk this alone. You simply need to be brave and courageous to say something to someone you trust and who's safe for you. Thank you for being part of today's journey. I hope our time together brought you moments of insight, heightened awareness, and a spark of empowerment. If this episode resonated with you, I encourage you to share it with a friend. You can connect with me or today's guest through the show notes. I'm always here to offer support to guide you deeper on your path. Remember, mind, body, soul mastery is a continuous journey of growth. Be gentle with yourself as your awareness deepens. Grace and compassion will guide you forward. Until next time, I'm Brenda Stott-Tomlinson, here to guide you as you embrace your journey of mind, body, soul mastery.